Whoa, okay, so it's the Pokemon Wheel of Fortune, 3 episodes left, and at the end of the last episode, we spun, we got D on the wheel, and there is the team. It was Dialga, we didn't have a choice there, that was our restricted, and you can see the rest of the team on your screen. Again, reminder, this was filmed during Series 11, so not Series 12 rules, you won't see double restricted. Let's have a look, see how we got on. So our first opponent with a tricky team, a really tricky team, had the Zacian as their restricted, and they've got Grimmsnarl there for screen support, they've got Intimidate, they've got the Galarian Moltres, which was really a bit of a worry for sure, because we want to set up Trick Room with Dusclops, also got Drifblim as well. So both weak to that one. And yeah, they've got the Gastrodon if we do set up Trick Room. That's going to be annoying to deal with. And the Rotom could be annoying, but also could not be annoying as well. It's kind of the middle of the road. But yeah, my opponent has Pokemon that threaten quite a lot of our team. So, what do I do? Well, I think that Trick Room is definitely the route I want to go for. So you see I lock in Dusclops there, and then characteristically no longer lock in Dusclops a couple of seconds later. So I lock in Dialga, and then I do lock in Dusclops because I'm like, no, we will lead Dusclops. And in the back I bring, I believe I bring Dracovish and Drifblim to this one. Yeah, so there we go. Let's see what happens. So my opponent leads off with Gastrodon and Moltres, so really annoying lead. This is about as anti-Trick Room as I think they could have gone. Of course, again, threatening that super effective damage, and then Gastrodon functions well enough under Trick Room. There's our Frisk. Leftovers on the Gastrodon, weakness policy on the Moltres, big surprise. And I think I still go for the Trick Room. Yeah, but I believe I still go for the Trick Room. The thing is, we're not running Trick Room on Dialga, so my opponent may not target the Dusclops, because they may think, oh, he's got a Dialga. Dialga also gets Trick Room and often carries Trick Room. So, not sure where the attack's going to go on this turn. But you can see I do decide to Dynamax turn 1. And go for that Max Quake, boost our special defense, and try to get our Trick Room set up. Because Dusclops is Dusclops. If you've played any VGC and Sword of Shield, you know what Dusclops does and just how bulky Dusclops can be. So we're going for that Trick Room on turn 1. We're getting our Max Quake to shore up our special defenses against 2 special attackers on my opponent's side of the field. And let's see how much damage we're going to do. Nasty Plot. So they goes for the Nasty Plot. I'm so used to seeing Snarl nowadays. I think it gets, yeah, no, it does. So used to seeing Snarl nowadays in Series 12. But we get the Max Quake off. They go for Nasty Plot. I'm happy with that. That's fine. We're getting that special defense boost as well to somewhat mitigate the Nasty Plot boost. And it has Yawn, which is no big surprise. Luckily, they yawned into the Dusclops and not the Dialga. Maybe reading into a potential ally switch there. But that makes things tricky because we've got weakness policy on Dialga, we've got Brick Break on Dusclops. So of course I want to activate my weakness policy. If I do that, Dusclops will sleep on the next turn. And not only that, but what are the odds that my opponent tries to yawn Dialga on the next turn? Pretty high, I'd say. But the team was made to function in Trick Room, so we double down. We make our play. We go for the Max Steel Spike into Moltres, and we Brick Break our Dialga to get that weakness policy boost. My opponent maxes the Moltres, which is not surprising. Scary though, because it is at +2. I'm hoping that we would knock it out with this move. You know, in hindsight, probably should have been the Max Wormwind to be honest. Let's have a look, see how much damage this does. I think I felt like the Max Steel Spike would knock out and was the better investment for subsequent turns. Yeah, so there's the yawn. Surprise, surprise. We get our Steel Spike off. And decent damage. Really decent damage. I don't know if we'd have gone for the Max Draco Meteor, if that would have knocked it out. Probably wouldn't have. But you can see, at essentially... No, that is still +2. That is still +2. So that did not do much damage for whatever reason. I have no idea why. But that, I felt like that should have knocked out my Dusclops, because that was a +2 max move. Dark stab as well from the Moltres. Didn't knock out Dusclops. Very strange. Very strange. So, I actually want to switch Dusclops out here because it's dead weight on that slot. I feel like my opponent may not target that slot and just keep going into Dialga. This is our last turn of Dynamax. Dialga will sleep at the end of the turn as well. So I take this opportunity to get Dusclops out, get Dracovish in, and get another threat under Trick Room. My opponent goes for the Max Guard, which, if you saw my move selection, I read into. It was a fairly obvious protect. So we actually go for the Max Quake onto Gastrodon and get our Dracovish boosted up. My opponent went for the Ice Beam into the Dusclops slot, so they were going to knock it out for me. But we switched in the Dracovish. Luckily didn't get frozen from the Ice Beam. And now we've got our special defense boosted as well, and Dracovish ready to go under Trick Room, with my opponent essentially wasting a Dynamax turn. So, all good. We do have a slight issue in that Dialga is taking a nap now. It's worked hard, to be fair, but it's not really doing much for us at the moment. The good news is Gastrodon's gone, so it can't redirect our Vicious Wrens from Dracovish. Landorus comes in, but it's gonna take some damage from our Dracovish, that's for sure. If we target that slot, of course, I'm free to go into the Moltres now. Moltres is the bigger threat, and we've got a nice flying type in the back with ground immunity to switch into our Dialga slot. So in comes Drifblim. And there we go. That's Moltres gone. And then the Earthquake comes out and it plays out exactly as expected. So now we're in an interesting spot. Because it is the final turn of Trick Room, I believe. And 2 Pokemon on the field that are faster than my own Pokemon. So my Drifblim set, I actually went with Stockpile Drifblim, which may seem like a strange choice because no one runs Stockpile in pretty much on anything. Nothing runs Stockpile. The only time I've ever seen Stockpile used was in 2017 at the beginning of that season, Sun and Moon, when it first came out. Stockpile Gastrodon it was quite decent. It placed quite highly in some tournaments. And I was kind of channeling that when I made this team. Get Drifblim into a good spot, stockpile up, because it is a bulky Pokemon. We get the knockout into Landorus, even at -1 with a Vicious Rend. And yeah, we stockpile up, and then Drifblim becomes really difficult to remove, because it of course has the recovery from Strength Sap as well. So, we get our stockpile. And we go for the Tailwind. We're going to swap Dracovish out, because of course we want Dracovish in Tailwind. Dusclops isn't really doing anything for us anymore. We're looking like we're in a good spot, but we still need to be careful. We've got 2 Pokemon asleep. The Zacian can knock out all of our Pokemon. The Peanut Blade comes out, but you'll see that that does not knock out. For a very good reason, I EV'd the Drifblim to, I believe, take that hit even from full health. Sorry, even with no boost. So we'll stockpile up. We take it even more comfortably. Now here I make a bit of a misplay, because I can stockpile or I can strength sap. And I say it's a misplay. Is it a misplay? I mean, it kind of is. I go for the stockpile when really I should have just gone for the strength sap, because my opponent could protect, in which case stockpile is the better choice. But it's not really a risk that I need to take, and it's not really a risk I should take. I go for the stockpile, I get my boost. I know I'll survive the Behemoth Blade anyway, but it should have been the strength sap to lower the Zacian's attack in case they crit the Drifblim. At least we've lowered the attack for subsequent turns. But we didn't do that. We used stockpile, and there we go. Luckily, it played out okay. And then we go for the strength sap, and it was a bad play on the previous turn. It was not the best play on the previous turn, but after this, I think that it maybe led to some emotional damage to my opponent more than anything else. Because look at that. Look, our Drifblim says, "Yeah, thank you very much," and they actually read into a potential switch, which I was never going to go for. No need to switch Dialga in there, but my opponent, of course, needs to make these kinds of plays at this point. And yeah, not looking great for my opponent. And you can see my opponent actually forfeits, and yeah, really pleased because we got a win in our very first game on this episode as well. And it was cool. We got to see the Drifblim in action, especially with stockpile. It all kind of came together. GG's to my opponent. If you've seen the series before, you'll know when we win our first game, we still do a second battle, because it takes me a long time to come up with these team ideas and put them together. And then getting the win on the first one, it's like, well, you only seen 4 of the Pokemon. Maybe we can see what the other 2 do. So let's go to our next battle. So my opponent for this game, really nice team. Firewalk Grass Core, Reshiram was their restricted of choice. And yeah, that Firewalk Grass Core, Reshiram, Rillaboom, Milotic, Landorus Eye, which was very popular in Series 11, and then Togekiss, which you assume probably has redirection, potentially has Yawn as well. But then the Urshifu. The Urshifu was the thing I was really worried about here. Of course, you've got to expect that it's going to be Dark-type Urshifu on this team, which Dark and Fighting type, that's going to threaten both our Dusclops and our Dialga. So I had to be very careful with how I led this game. So as usual, I ended up locking in with like a few seconds remaining, and I believe I led with Darmanitan, Dialga, with Dusclops and Drednaw in the back. So you're going to see all 6 Pokemon. So my opponent leads the Urshifu and Reshiram, which is a really nice lead because it threatens both of our potential Trick Room setters as far as my opponent knows. Of course, we only have 1 in Dusclops, but again, for all my opponent knows, Dialga has Trick Room. So this is why we led the Darmanitan to put out pressure and really threaten the Urshifu in the off chance it's not holding a Focus Sash. So we target down that slot, and I have to make a choice with Dialga here. Obviously, I can't protect it. I decided to switch in Dusclops. Now, very risky because my opponent could, instead of close combating the Dialga slot, which I'm hoping they do, could very easily go for that Wicked Blow, get that critical hit, which is probably the better play for my opponent, to be honest. Maybe to double that slot, since I can't protect the front of Urshifu anyway. But we roll the dice, we take the risk, we bring in Dusclops. And there we go, we confirms that Focus Sash. So our Flare Blitz comes out. Big damage into the Urshifu. Not quite knocks it into Focus Sash, but effectively does. And they do go for the close combat, so really fortunate there. And they go for the Earth Power, and that's Darmanitan gone. So a bit of a rough first turn, to be honest. Because, yeah, Dusclops is on the field now, it is threatened. And that Urshifu outspeeds both Drednaw and Dialga. So I have to make a choice. Do I bring in Drednaw or Dialga? Of course, I want to get the Dialga in, but I bring in the Drednaw. The reason I'm bringing the Drednaw is because I can potentially get a double KO if my opponent doesn't max their Reshiram. We can bring in the Drednaw, we can max it, and basically my opponent needs to double one of the slots. It's up to them to choose. So we max the Drednaw, maybe we'll lose it if we're not careful. But we max the Drednaw, we go for the Rockfall. If we pull this off, let's say they don't max the Reshiram, or even if they do, it will do a lot of damage. But if they don't max the Reshiram, we will knock it out. We'll survive whatever the Urshifu can throw at us as well. And then the Sand will finish off the Urshifu. We'll get Trick Room up, and then we'll really have turned the tables on my opponent. So let's see how this pans out. So my opponent switches out Reshiram into Togekiss. Now, not the switch they wanted to be making. A curious switch. I'm not entirely sure what they were planning there. Obviously, I don't know their team, you know. Sometimes plays can seem not quite logical, but once you know the reasoning behind it or the team you're dealing with, most plays are very logical, but I'm not sure what my opponent was going for here. Maybe just wanted to conserve the Reshiram. And they do go for that close combat, which does a ton of damage, but we're going to get Trick Room up. And unless this is Charty Berry, which even if it is, I think would knock out anyway, we should be picking up a double KO this turn. And there we go. Perfect. We've gone from a fairly rough turn 1 to a decent turn 2. Took a lot of damage on our Dynamax Pokemon, but we picked up 2 KOs and got our Trick Room up. There we go. So, now, you're about to see an interesting play. Once again, we're playing Terrence maybe doesn't think his turn's through. Actually, no, to be fair. So you'll see what we do. So we're staring down my Lotic Reshiram. My opponent hasn't Dynamaxed yet. I'm quite happy to see my Lotic, honestly. Dialga should be able to hopefully deal with it. Of course, a very tanky Pokemon, kind of annoying. But I need to make a choice here. Do I undo the Trick Room turns? Do I undo Trick Room? Or do I attack with Drednaw? Because this Drednaw is not minimum speed. It has some speed investment. It's not particularly speedy, but it has speed investment in case I do go for Rain Dance or I max Dracovish or I get Tailwind up. It has speed. So I actually go all in because I'm thinking I probably underspeed this Milotic. And when I say I go all in, you'd have seen I go for the Helping Hand max Rockfall. And maybe shouldn't have done that. Maybe. To be fair, what other options did I have? So the Reshiram protects. And I'm thinking, please underspeed. We don't underspeed, and it's a Max Geyser. So, yeah, what else could I have done? I could have gone for a Brick Break, of course. I could have just Brick Breaked, got off the most pitiful damage in the world ever into Milotic. Could have reversed Trick Room, which would have been an interesting spot. Would have been very interesting on subsequent turns. I don't know if we necessarily underspeed the Reshiram with Drednaw though. Maybe we don't. So I think it was just a tricky turn, to be honest. The Helping Hand was probably the best play we had, so we were never going to Rain Dance on that turn. But yeah, this is very tricky. Very back and forth kind of game. We get Dialga in, we go for the Brick Break in Dialga, try and get our Weakness Policy boost, which we do. No Protect from my opponent this turn. Not surprising, they protected Reshiram on the previous turn. And the thing is, because they underspeed our Drednaw, I knew they would probably underspeed our Dialga. But I felt like I needed to take this opportunity to get rid of the Reshiram. Protected last turn, can't protect this turn, so I thought, no, we need to get that out of here. And it's Life Orb Milotic, and from what I remember, a lot of the time, Life Orb Milotic would run max speed because they're more offensive, but my opponent is running a slower Milotic with Life Orb, and it's causing us problems. But we get the Reshiram. Reshiram's gone. So, of course, we're relying on Dialga to knock out this Milotic. Dusclops can't do it. It's impossible. So, we're very low health with Dialga. So what I need to do here, of course I need to protect. I have no choice. We need to protect, and we need to undo Trick Room. Now the problem is, looking at the damage, from that Hailstorm, Dialga should survive. But after the Hail Chip at the end of the turn, that might seal the deal, unfortunately. So let's have a look. So it actually doesn't do that much. We have two ticks of Hail Chip before we get knocked out. And now Dialga is the fastest thing on the field, which is great. And my opponent's Dynamax turns will end. And you see that my Dialga's health just dropped from 22 down to 10. So we're taking 12 Hail damage at the end of each turn. So we're going to lose the game. So we go for the Draco Meteor, and this is it. This is not why I put it on the team. But you see we've got Rain Dance, because my opponent's probably going to protect. And it's like, well, I need to remove the Hail. This is our only chance. I did want a Helping Hand Draco, but you see my opponent does protect. So I was like, oh god, okay, good. Yeah, because Milotic's so bulky, I wasn't necessarily convinced that the Draco, even at +2, would knock out from this range. Depends how they've trained it. But there we go. My opponent probably thinking they had it in the bag, and then we pull out the Rain Dance, and Dialga doesn't take any damage. So, Draco Meteor, 90% accurate. We have a 1 in 10 chance of just losing the game here, and a 9 in 10 chance of sewing up. This is it. We go for our Helping Hand Draco. I considered the Earth Power, but I didn't think it was going to be enough. I felt like we had to go for the Draco. Do we get it though? Yes, we do. Of course we do. It's not like we ever miss moves on this channel. The life of a Pokemon player. And we got the win. A really good game to my opponent. Really well played. Super back and forth. Like, it was like, oh no, we're gonna lose. Oh, we could win. Oh, we're probably gonna lose. Oh, we might win. And then we pulled out the bag. So that was D. There's only. It sounds so weird whenever I say it. But that was the end of this episode. Let's spin and see what we're gonna have for our penultimate episode of the Pokemon Wheel of Fortune. So we're almost there. Only 2 episodes left. Only B and U, X, Z left on the wheel. So let's do it. Let's spin, find out what we're gonna get for our penultimate episode. Round and round it goes. Where it stops, we all know because it's going quite slowly. It's gonna be on the U, X, Z quite clearly. So for our second to last episode, we can only use Pokemon that begin with the letter U, X, or Z, which sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot. Let's have a look. So you can see, I wasn't kidding. We've only got 4 Pokemon to choose from. Umbreon, Unfezant, Urshifu, and Uxie. No restricted as of yet. Moving on to X. We see that we only have 3 Pokemon to choose from. One of them is restricted though. We actually have Xerneas as a potential restricted here. Only Zartu and Xurkitree to choose from the other 2 slots. And Z, quite a few Pokemon to choose from, but like half of them are restricted Pokemon. Of course, Zacian, Zamazenta, Zekrom, and Zygarde. So 4 restricteds to choose from. And then we've got Zapdos thrown in there. Of course, we can only use one form of Zapdos, one or the other. And then you've got Zoroark, and that's it. So yeah, I really wasn't kidding. Not many Pokemon to choose from for the next episode. It's going to be a difficult one. Or it was a difficult one. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. And yeah, we're almost there. See you soon.